once I realized that, I remember thinking, I always want to be on the side that helps open doors and creates opportunities for all young people. No matter what, I didn't even know what that meant or looked like at that time. But I think that was part of my formation of self-identity, as being a leader that would open doors for young people.
Welcome to TRIIBE Talk, where we alternate between young changemakers and long-standing leaders in the social impact space to demonstrate that age doesn't impact the quality of one's work. I'm here today with Danielle. Danielle Guindo is the Executive Director for Read Alliance. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, before we begin, I want to remind our guests that TRIIBE Talk is sponsored by Raise, a mobile-first platform sponsoring individual activism, corporate giving, and nonprofit volunteerism. Download Raise on Google Play or the App Store to give, volunteer, and connect.
Streamr. TRIIBE Talk is a Streamr studio production. Stream your podcast, stream your story, stream yourself. Try it free at TRIIBE.nyc. Make your voice, brand, and message seen and heard on every platform today.
Danielle, you have a tremendous career in the nonprofit space, especially on the way that you are empowering people to get started on their journey in education. Mm-hmm. Could you tell me more, though, first about your journey with learning and how this has led to your now leadership for Read Alliance?
Thank you for asking, Kyle. And let me just say, it is a real privilege to be a guest on a show that has been started by a young person such as yourself, who's just starting out in your career, because that is truly like at the core of the work that Read Alliance does, is really fostering young leaders to pursue their dreams and their avenues, whatever they may be. But in answer to your question, I am the child of two public school teachers, and sort of grew up, fully understanding that when a teacher believes in the power and potential of all the children in their classroom, the sky's the limit for those kids. And that was really the kind of energy that I was brought up in. And so, I took that with me in my pursuit of a career in social work and in a lot of the roles that I have had along the way. And when I found Read Alliance, having a father who was a high school English teacher here in New York City, and a mother who was an early childhood educator and a reading specialist, and here was an opportunity to potentially lead an organization that pairs teenagers in high school one-on-one to teach younger children in early elementary school how to read. It sort of was a reflection of who I was and where I was from, in all the ways that just sort of made the most sense. And so I was really inspired by the mission of the organization, and really felt compelled to be a part of advancing it and making sure that it can grow.
That's incredible. I think especially the fact that you found something that represents you in such a perfect way.
Yes.
And also to recognize that basically means that generations prior, people developed something. Because Read Alliance just broke their 25th anniversary.
That's right.
So that people would create a solution and continue it so that people like yourself can step in and lead.
That's right. I love that you said that, actually. I don't mean to interrupt your next question, but I do want to put an exclamation point on what you just said. The vision of the founders is one that continues to inspire all of us who are involved in the organization to this day. That understanding that a teenager could be the agent of change for a young person and help to teach them how to read. And that model that pairs the two in this learning relationship has not changed at all since the very start of the organization. And we stand on the shoulders of giants, those of us who are continuing the legacy of Read Alliance. So I do appreciate that you mentioned that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, a successful model is one that respects and empowers people from all perspectives. Mm. And to be able to recognize that high schoolers can generate impact, regardless of how, is something that I certainly myself and the organization we set forth to empower and inspire young change makers can get behind.
That's true. That's true. I love that. I mean, I think, there's something really powerful about calling yourself a leader, especially when you're still in high school and you're an adolescent. And at Read Alliance, when we were starting to think about, in what ways can we build out and provide more structure for the teens who are working with us as the individual reading tutors, what might we want to call them? Because we were just calling them tutors. And there was a person on our staff who still is, who's continued to grow on our staff, who was a teen leader when she was in high school. And she actually coined that term, teen leader. She said, if I was called a leader as a high school student, the feeling, the mentality, the thinking about who I was and how I showed up is different. And so that's when we changed the language. Language can be so powerful, from teen tutor to teen leader. And that's part of the change that happens, that's transformational when young people are working in the roles that we work with them.
It's no surprise that Read Alliance is focusing on language as a means to represent someone's identity, and you're empowering people in such a tremendous way. At your recent summit,
Yes.
right, there was a child who spoke of the opportunities that it gave him in high school,
Yes.
and that it empowered him to be a somebody.
Yes.
I'm still blown away by that sentence, but I'm curious on your lens. When was the first time that you were empowered to be a leader or thought of yourself that way?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's such a great question. I think there certainly was a moment in high school when, in my own journey of growing as a leader, when I remember being asked to join a group that was going to actually a local juvenile detention facility. And it was really, an opportunity to connect with young people who were just like us, but through unfortunate circumstances were in this, this place that was very different from where we were. And I think the realization that we all are so similar, but the opportunities that we have, the access that we have, can really shape our direction. And once I realized that, I remember thinking, I always want to be on the side that helps open doors and creates opportunities for all young people. No matter what, I didn't even know what that meant or looked like at that time. But I think that was part of my formation of self-identity, as being a leader that would open doors for young people. Because I could understand that I'm sitting across the table from a young person who had been arrested or detained for whatever reason, and they were just like me. And same age as me, we had gone to the same high school, and it was circumstance. It was just not having the same privilege, the same opportunities that other young people like myself had had. So believing that my space in the world was going to be one that was going to be positive was a decision that was made, I think, when I was 16 through that experience. And I think as I continued to grow, the other influences were adults who believed in me, and I can name a few. There was one in college who hired or made the decision to hire me as a leader among my peers in a college space where we're all working in the front desk. Knowing that there was someone who I admired and respected who saw something in me. And that continued my growth as a leader. And I see that as something that I can help continue to promote in the work that we do at Read Alliance. When you see a young person as a leader and make sure that they feel seen as a leader, they continue to grow. I'm sure you see that in your work as well.
Absolutely. And there's so many ways that you've expressed that tie into what we've heard also in other podcasts. I mean, firstly, the motif of opening doors, tremendous. Secondly, the ability to recognize gratitude and appreciation and difference, opportunities, and be grateful for those. I mean, that is something that we've heard across the board. It's something that happens in childhood. You don't wait to discover gratitude as an adult. And at the same point, you also speak to the fact that leadership isn't a snap of the fingers when you're 40 years old and you all of a sudden become the head of something. Whether it's a company, whether it's a family, whether it is a project or a program, it starts when you're young.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you feel like even beforehand, like, was there any opportunities from parents, especially them both being teachers themselves, that you had leadership before you even knew what it meant?
Well, I am the oldest. So I do have the oldest sibling syndrome. I think that was, and I am, because, it's the American story, the blended family. I am quite a bit older than some of my siblings. And so I did grow up a little bit differently, where I wasn't like so close in age that we were, squabbling over things, or, I never really fought with any of my siblings, because it was more of like I was, much older than them. And so I could be, a guide, advice giver, I could be sort of like a parental figure in many spaces and many opportunities. So I think that, I'm sure, shaped me as a leader as well, just, feeling protective and wanting to make sure that I was, helping out my younger siblings, and I'm close and with all of them. So I think that was part of it. And I also think that observing how my parents each approached their role as teacher. I mean, my father coached young people in New York City public schools, in some of the most under-resourced neighborhoods, coached them to win the citywide Shakespeare championship. And these are young people that others may have written off as not being eligible or qualified to win such a thing. And my dad didn't see that. It's like anybody could do it. And my mom, brought this incredible vigor and energy to her classroom, where there was no barrier to exploration. If they were studying hermit crabs, she would get some hermit crabs and she'd bring them to the classroom, and the kids would take them out and touch them and explore them. If they were studying how to make something or grow something, they would actually do it. And there was nothing that was too hard or too much to experiment with or explore with. And kids deserve that. Every kid deserves that kind of energy and attention. And so I grew up seeing that, thinking, no differently. And I'm privileged enough to be a part of an organization and to help lead an organization that believes the same thing. Every child can learn. Every child has the right and ability to read, and every young person has the right and the ability to lead.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no surprise we also align on the recognition that genius or intelligence is equally distributed across everyone. It's not that it's prioritized by one race, ethnicity, gender, value, wealth class, although certainly it's perfect practice, not just practice, that makes and shapes this opportunity for some and not for others. So to be able to open doors for the rest of the playing field and leverage these new technologies to do so is great. Yep. One thing that I really like about your program is that, just like with your, and it kind of speaks to the opportunities you learned from your mom too, just like how she would bring hermit crabs in person, like you make children touch the books.
Yeah.
And when I got to visit and learn about the program, it is tremendous to see the teen leaders there walking through a child who's putting their finger on a book.
You got it.
Who has the I, we, woo, the I say, the teen leader, and then we say it together. Yep. And then having the teen leader step back so that the young leader can say it themselves.
You got it.
I mean, I love how tangible the learning becomes.
Yes. I love how you described that. And that that warms my heart, because I always say to people, like, nothing speaks like the magic of seeing it in person, right? So I thank you for that. What you were describing is what we call, and any teen at any point, I mean, I've talked to adults who were teen leaders with Read Alliance 15, 20 years ago, who will tell you moi. That's it, my turn, our turn, your turn. That's what you're remembering, moi. Right? Is it my turn? And the way you described it is exactly that. It's being able to help young people feel successful, and encouraged in the process. And I think that's what's also so powerful about the overall Read Alliance program, is that it, is designed so that every child enters at their own spot and progresses at their own rate. And so they can celebrate their own progress, and it's not in competition or comparison with anybody else. So it removes the stigma of being in a classroom where they may not feel like they're keeping up with their peers. They're succeeding, and every day they're not only just succeeding, but they're succeeding with the encouragement of a big kid who might have also experienced the same struggle learning to read when they were younger and shared a lot of the same lived experience, which helps build that connection and makes it feel much more like really fun afternoon than an extension of school.
Right. Am I wrong to say that some of the teen leaders themselves actually went through the program to learn how to read?
We know we need to get a better handle on exactly how many. Some of them don't remember if they did or not, because it's like, I think I did something like this. But you would be right, and we know for a fact that there's a lot of teens that go back to their own elementary schools to work. So there's a lot of teenagers who are like in sometimes the same first grade classrooms where they sat.
Yeah.
So that's a really special, what we call community empowerment model, where they're going back home in a way.
I think very much tangent to TRIIBE. It's for youth, by youth.
Yes, yes.
And it's empowered by a legacy, like you said, of those that are willing to support the next generation.
Yep, exactly. I love that.
No, it's tremendous that in two different sectors there's so much overlap, and it really speaks in exciting ways. On mine, I know being able to participate and work inside of READ is one of the ways that has helped us shape what we're doing today, help us shape what works, and in letting people know that they're leaders, for example, but also to recognize that going down the right path means being proactive, it means being grateful, and it means recognizing that anybody has the opportunity to go forward.
That's right.
But perhaps then to tangent from this conversation to go into another. How do you face like the challenges or struggles with a program that is so hands-on?
It is rigorous. You're asking like all the right questions, and I think one of the struggle is that our team is so strong we make it look very easy. And so I think a lot of people forget, or not as astute as you are when you saw it, that it really takes a lot. There's a lot of detail involved in making a READ Alliance program work, ensuring that there's the one-to-one tutor, teen leader, child ratio at all times, ensuring that we've got the right teachers who are, who love and respect and work alongside the teens, identifying the schools where there's a willingness to make sure that there's space after school to have the program, but also, the connection with the high schools to recruit the teens and train them and ensure that we've got them onboarded. And, we're hiring teens. In New York City, we are hiring and actually have more than 900, sometimes more than 1,000 teens on our payroll every year, which is an incredibly rigorous process. And so, yes, I think, the struggle is really ensuring, number one, making sure that it's really clear to all of our supporters and all of our partners, we take all of that incredibly seriously. And that requires a tremendous amount of time and attention, and that every dollar that we raise, make sure that can continue to work as smoothly as it has. And what we've also seen, though, is that level of attention to detail, that rigor, has borne results. And so, over 25 years, we can, say with such confidence that children who complete our program improve more than a grade level in reading. And that's only because we struggle to ensure that rigor is never loosened. We never take our eye off the ball. We never take our foot off the gas, or whatever you want to say about that. We always, always, always make sure that every last detail is attended to in order to make sure that those outcomes are consistent year after year.
And what about yourself? I mean, you have an organization that doesn't take the foot off the gas. How do you ensure that when you're working hard on a project like this, or perhaps if it's the same as you've always done, as a young leader in college or to be doing work in high school, like how did you make sure that you didn't burn out?
That's such a great question. I think that's I'm a unique person in that I really thrive off of having a lot to do for a good cause. It would be tough for me to burn out on something that fulfills me so much. Truth. I think what burns people out, or when I've experienced that feeling, is when there's a lot of crises, a lot of fires to put out, when there's emergencies time and time again. And knock wood, I'm a superstitious person. I don't want to say things too much out loud. But by and large, leading Read Alliance because of how soundly it was created, because of the vision of the founders and the incredible strength and support of the board of directors over the years up till now especially, has really enabled someone like me to be my best self in this role. And so, yeah, I work really hard. I work a lot harder than most people, I will admit it. But I am working on a mission and a purpose that is so fulfilling and so important that at least that saves me from burning out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we found burnout in my head is something akin to mental health.
Yeah.
And a study that I have now, I guess, repeatedly said, but something that I've recognized in my own life is that when you are giving back and supporting, as well as especially when you are seeing the physical results, when you are in person in a classroom or something like that, and recognizing the light, like the eyes light up of children or youth, or whether you're supporting someone and seeing a smile, right? That emotional response, that which we might be lacking, this third state, where you have your home environment, your school or work environment, and then this missing zone for escape or for opportunities. I think by losing out on that, we are struggling, and that's what's leading to burnout and missed opportunities. Is leading out to fear and stress of burnout because we're seeing it in our peers. However, when you're on the nonprofit side, when you are working with volunteers, volunteering yourself, or encouraging, you know that it's more the mission and the impact you're making that is keeping everything afloat. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, I think, like you said, being able to see the results of your work is really helpful. When you can actually, on any given day, if I wanted to, walk into a Read Alliance classroom, it's always so validating that any stress or any challenge or any heartache or any sleepless night was worth it. And to your point, that brightness, when I was at a school last week, and I always love watching the moment when the little ones go into the classroom for the first time and they see their teen leader for the first time, and like the scurry over, or like the little hug or the high five, or just the light in their eyes when they capture the person that they are going to be reading with. Just like that spark, that connection, that energy in that moment just really makes it all worth it.
Right. What would you say to people stressed out about the fact that they, as an individual, later on in life, like high school, middle school, are worried about what their future looks like, right? What opportunities are out there, whether those are going down. It is clear to me that it's this initial spark for young readers that allows them to embrace this project and succeed. How do you encourage people in general to embrace projects, or what success tactics can individuals take from Read Alliance and your experiences to start their own things or to take their own actions?
Yeah, I mean, I think, even, getting to know you and the work of TRIIBE has, informed some of what I would say right now. And that is, being authentic is really the only way to be a driven and effective leader in this world, right? So understanding what drives you as a person, and blocking out the noise, but like what drives you as a person, not what you think your parents wanted for you, what you think your friends are expecting of you, not keeping up with someone else, but truly looking inward and reflecting on what makes you tick, what is truly your passion. That's going to save a lot of heartache later on. And I think, I've noticed that in, a lot of times when you and I talk about, projects that you've initiated, including TRIIBE, it comes from such an authentic place. It's such, you can only be true. You're looking inwards, like, what means something to me? What matters? What would make a difference? This is not what someone else said. This is coming from here. And I think when that is what's driving you, if you lead with this, you can't ever go wrong. That's been my experience, at least.
How do you check in with yourself? Or how often do you check? Do you meditate? Do you journal? Do you write? Do you have conversations with family or friends? Like, how do you check in to make sure that you're on the right path?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think everybody needs to find what works for them. that reflection that I was talking about. Like how do people reflect? I'm fortunate in that, I have a partner, my husband, who is an incredibly helpful reflector, someone who can, process things, be honest, raise issues that might not have thought of, think about things that I might not be aware of, help look at the blind spot that I might have. I feel very fortunate that I have that in my partner. I mean, I think, prior to that, I would say, friends, good friends, trusted friends, people who know you, people who have seen you, like truly seen you. You have to be able to have that honest feedback from someone in your life. And if not, like you suggested, I think there's a lot of value, and I do this, like sometimes if you just get something out, it's like you loosen the vice. Like if you're worried about something, you're thinking about something, if there's something weighing on your mind, just getting it down sometimes can feel like just like turning the valve a little bit so that you can breathe a little easier. It's out there. So I think, it depends on what people have in their lives, who they have, who they can trust, how well supported they are by their network. We call that like mutual aid in the social work world. But to your point, I think it is really important to figure out, like, is it a hobby? Is it running? I have a lot of people who check in with themselves because they run. They put in their headphones, they start doing some meditating, and they're running. That's a way that a lot of folks I know have, like, kept themselves centered. But I think figuring out what that is really important, because you're right. That's that's key to staying steady, to being able to weather the challenges, to pursue your dreams, to keep going.
And what about if something like a check-in is not working? Right? For example, some people would say, to your point, if there's a challenge, getting something out, doing something really eases the vice. Yeah. But what happens when the thing you're doing isn't helping?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think, I'm the kind of person, the perspective that I have is one from what you would call like an extrovert, right? So there's a network. There's a network of folks, at least in a sphere that I can call my own, that I know, if something doesn't go this way, I can turn this way, and I might be able to get some advice on this end. I think, folks need to be real with themselves about who in their network can be trusted and can help them think through ways to, mitigate challenges and keep themselves sane. I think there's a couple of other things that folks should be thinking about, and I love that you've asked this question, because it's like making me think, like, how would I? Not to lose heart. I think it sounds cliche, but if something's not working, and it's becoming overwhelming to face that there's like a barrier, stopping to take a breath and not to lose heart. Know that you've gotten this far because of something that's working. There may be a way around it if you take a breath and you take a beat. Think about it differently. Maybe it's not the way you expected it. Maybe it's not what you thought. That's something that I've also learned as I've grown in my professional journey, that I might have a vision about how something has to be, or it's always been a certain way, and I'm quick to respond. I'm the kind of person that's like, I need to be told, wait, hold on, take a beat, think this through. If you stop, breathe, pause, take a minute, walk away from it, there may be another way around it that didn't look the way you expected. And it may sound cliche, but I think it's something that I myself have had to actually talk myself through at different moments. It's something that requires practice to slow down and breathe. Yeah.
To slow down and breathe is something that we can all appreciate and shouldn't take for granted.
Sure.
Because even a simple action like that is not universal.
That's right.
Right. I'm curious. I mean, you have a lot of methods for success, and you've learned a lot of things that don't really come just from success. I think a lot of people say you have to see the other side, or that to experience great highs, you must be able and appreciate them. You must have gone through lows. Do you have any lows or struggles that you can talk to where you've been using those type of tactics in order to step forward into this role that you have now?
That's a tough one. Of course, we all do, right? So there's certainly, moments in life that I can, think about that were tough. Like navigating it, required really digging deep and ensuring that, I stayed true to myself and I leaned on the people that I could trust, and gave myself grace. I think that's an important. That's an important thing to do too, is to learn to give yourself grace. We are our worst critics at times, and we hold our own selves to very, very high standards. And if, when I've taken the moment to say, wait, I'm the only one who's expecting this right now. Let me give myself a little bit of a break. That has made all the difference too, and that's helped in moments when I just wouldn't have had the strength or the reserves to keep it going. And I think it is, something that can translate to leadership in the professional realm. As we were talking about, like navigating challenges, if something's not working, what do you do? Stepping back, giving grace, appreciating like, what is it that has to be done? What is it that might not need to be? Like, it may not look the same when you actually step back and think about what those mandatory things may be. Where is it coming from? Is it just up here, or is it actually happening that way? But that does take some, reflection. People need to be attuned to their own, like, selves in that way, and that's hard for folks who are running constantly.
Right.
I relate to that. It's something I've had to learn.
Being able to stop running.
Yeah.
So you can appreciate
You
how
can
far
think.
you've gone.
Yeah.
Or maybe where to run next.
Yeah.
Last question. In those moments, for you, or do you think it's a universal, did you receive a lot of support from others? Or did perhaps vulnerability or struggle there help you receive support from others?
Yeah. I feel very fortunate that I do, I don't take for granted the support system I have in my family and my partner, for sure. And that helps a lot. I am the kind of person that does see, like, I'm energized by the others. So for me, I can speak to that being a really key factor in being able to weather any storms. And some folks don't, and I've gotten to know, folks who are not energized by that, who would rather not have that. And then to your point, it's like, well, then what is it? Is it running? Is it journaling? Is it meditating? Is it yoga? What is it? But yes, I do not take for granted that I've got that support that has helped me through, for sure.
It is a collective spirit,
Yes.
often, that is stronger than any individual's.
That's right.
But there's so many different ways to find that collective spirit. I mean,
Yep.
you can find kinship with someone in a book, a story character, the author, right, with peers that you don't necessarily see in front of you.
Yeah.
So that's
true.
a great
You're
point.
right. You're right.
Cheers to the fact that anybody can solve problems, whether it is weathering the storms, embracing new opportunities or potentials, envisioning themselves as a leader.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspective, as well as the methods and tools that have made Read Aligned so successful. I really appreciate your time.
Well, great questions. I'm so happy to have been here. Thank you.
TRIIBE Talk is a Streamr studio production. Try Streamr free at streamr.nyc. Executive producer David Walters, videography and editing by David Walters, graphic design by Tristan Bresnan, music by Benjamin Senmana, hosted by Kyle Matthys. TRIIBE, taking root today to advance tomorrow.